Have you ever trusted someone so much that you'd follow them into the dark? What if that darkness wasn't metaphorical, but real, deadly, and irreversible? Today, we're diving deep into the most chilling, manipulative, and dangerous cults of modern history. These aren't just stories, they're warnings. From gas attacks in Tokyo to mass suicides in the jungle, from Hollywood nightmares to bioterrorism in Oregon, these cults shook the world to its core. This isn't fiction. This is the terrifying truth about how belief, when twisted, can destroy lives. Stay with us until the end. You won't believe what some of these groups did in the name of salvation. Rajneesh Movement, USA, India. First up, we go back to the 1980s, where a spiritual guru in orange robes, surrounded by Rolls Royces and chanting followers, seemed harmless until people started getting sick. Very sick. The Rajneesh Movement, led by Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh, later known as Osho, promised enlightenment and peace. But what unfolded in Wasco County, Oregon, was the largest bioterror attack in U.S. history. In 1984, members of the cult deliberately contaminated salad bars in local restaurants with salmonella, infecting over 750 people. Why? They were trying to sway a local election by incapacitating voters. The movement's commune stockpiled weapons, plotted assassinations, and tried to control local government. And yet, it all started with meditation and free love. FLDS Church, USA. When religion is used to justify abuse, the consequences can span generations. The Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or FLDS, a breakaway Mormon sect, preaches polygamy and the purity of early Mormonism. Under leader Warren Jeffs, it became a fortress of fear. Jeffs arranged marriages between underage girls and much older men, many of them family members. Survivors have shared horrifying stories of control, sexual abuse, and psychological manipulation. Jeffs himself is now serving life in prison plus 20 years for child sexual assault. Yet, even behind bars, many of his followers still believe he's a prophet. That's the grip a cult can have, even from a prison cell. Order of the Solar Temple, Canada, Europe. Next, we head to Switzerland, Canada, and France, where followers of the Order of the Solar Temple believed death would reunite them with ancient masters on Sirius, the star of salvation. Founded in the 1980s by Joseph DiMambro and Luc Jouret, the cult mixed Christianity, Freemasonry, and apocalyptic mysticism. But behind the esoteric talk was something much darker. Between 1994 and 1997, over 70 people died in mass murder-suicides. They were burned alive, poisoned, or shot. Many of the victims were found dressed in ceremonial robes, positioned in ritualistic patterns. DiMambro claimed their deaths were needed to escape the hypocrisy of the modern world. They weren't escaping, they were exterminated. Children of God, the Family International, Global. Imagine growing up in a cult where love was just a mask for exploitation. The Children of God, later rebranded as the Family International, was founded by David Berg, a charismatic leader who preached spiritual revolution through sexual liberation. But the reality was horrific. Members were encouraged to use sex as a tool for recruitment, known as flirty fishing, and children were systematically abused, often under the claim that they were God's gifts. Many former members, including celebrities like Rose McGowan and Joaquin Phoenix, have spoken out about the trauma and manipulation they endured. The group has since distanced itself from many of its early practices, but the damage remains. When faith becomes a facade for abuse, it's not religion, it's a nightmare. XIVM, USA. Next up is a cult hiding behind TED Talk-style self-help seminars and executive leadership training. XIVM was marketed as a personal development company founded by Keith Raniere. Attendees paid thousands to unlock their potential. But deep within the inner circle, a secret group called DOS operated like a shadow society. Women were branded literally with Raniere's initials. They were starved, blackmailed, and coerced into sexual slavery, all under the guise of empowerment. It wasn't until 2018 that the truth came crashing down. Raniere was convicted on charges including sex trafficking, racketeering, and forced labor. He's now serving 120 years in prison. This wasn't self-improvement. It was systemic, organized abuse. The Manson family, USA, summer of 1969, Hollywood, glamour, fame, and blood. Charles Manson, a failed musician turned doomsday preacher, convinced his followers, mostly young women, that a race war was coming. He called it Helter Skelter. His cult, the Manson family, murdered 7 people, including actress Sharon Tate, who was 8 months pregnant, and several of her friends. The killings were brutal and senseless. Manson didn't wield the knife, but his words did. He orchestrated chaos and fear, manipulating his followers to commit unimaginable acts. He wanted to start a revolution. What he created was a reign of terror. Branch Davidians, USA, Waco, Texas, 1993. The world watched as smoke rose from a compound housing men, women, and children. David Koresh, leader of the Branch Davidians, claimed to be the Lamb of God. He preached the end of days and built an arsenal of weapons in preparation. After allegations of child abuse and illegal firearms, the FBI and ATF laid siege to the compound. The standoff lasted 51 days and ended in flames. 76 people died, including 25 children. The debate continues. Was it a government failure or a cult tragedy? Either way, it was the perfect storm of delusion and force. People's Temple, USA, Guyana. This next cult gave us a word that now chills the spine: Jonestown. Led by Jim Jones, the People's Temple began as a progressive church preaching racial equality. But Jones's hunger for control led his followers to the jungles of Guyana, where he ruled like a dictator. On November 18, 1978, over 900 people died, 918 to be exact, after drinking a cyanide-laced beverage. It was the largest mass suicide in modern history. Among the dead were hundreds of children. The final words recorded from Jones: "Take the poison, hurry." Not everyone went willingly. Some were forced, some were shot. All were betrayed. Heaven's Gate, USA. In 1997, the world was mesmerized by the Hale-Bopp comet. But for one cult, it was their spaceship home. Heaven's Gate, led by Marshall Applewhite and Bonnie Nettles, believed Earth was doomed and that salvation would come aboard an alien vessel trailing the comet. They preached asceticism, celibacy, and leaving their human containers. In March 1997, 39 members dressed in identical black outfits and Nike shoes consumed a lethal cocktail of barbiturates and vodka and laid down to die, awaiting their cosmic ride. Aum Shinrikyo, Japan. And finally, the most terrifying cult in modern history, one that turned apocalyptic dreams into chemical warfare. Aum Shinrikyo, led by Shoko Asahara, combined Buddhist teachings, sci-fi elements, and doomsday prophecies. But behind the robes and chants was a paramilitary organization with labs, weapons, and a plan to trigger Armageddon. On March 20th, 1995, they released sarin gas, a deadly nerve agent, into the Tokyo subway system. 13 people died and over 5,000 were injured. This was no fringe group. Aum had scientists, engineers, and millions in funding. They conducted assassinations, kidnappings, and even attempted anthrax attacks. Asahara was executed in 2018, but the scars of his terror remain in Japan's collective memory. So what makes a cult so dangerous? It's not just the beliefs. It's the power to control, isolate, and manipulate people until they can no longer think for themselves. It's how hope can be weaponized, how fear can be cloaked in faith. And perhaps the scariest part? Most of these cults didn't look dangerous until it was too late. Which of these cults shocked you the most? Let us know in the comments. And if you think this was chilling, wait until you see what we're ranking next Sunday. Let's just say, history has no shortage of dark secrets. Until then, stay curious and stay safe.